Okay. Hey guys, Amos Johnson, pastor of Church for Entrepreneurs. I'm here with Gret Glyer, and he is the CEO and founder of Donor C. They have raised over $2 million for the world's poorest. Gret, from 2013, 2016, he lived in Malawi, Africa, where he built more than 150 houses for the homeless and crowdfunded a successful, sustainable girls' high school. So, and he's also an author. He's been on the TED stage, and so we got a lot of cool stuff. I think the book is "If the Poor Were Next Door," so that's the book title, right? Yep. So
That's
that's
it.
Gret's book title. So it's probably on Amazon and all the other places you can get books at. So his
Yep.
organizational donor C is actually pretty cool. And so for research for this interview, I actually went to his website and I actually funded one of his projects just to see how the process went. It's actually a pretty cool process. It was a guy. They needed tires for a car, and they only had a few dollars left. And I said I can close it out, and it was really smooth, real seamless, and it's really addictive to be able to give to see these things. So it's a really really cool platform. So
Yeah. Well,
so
thank you very much.
so great. So as we get started, just share a little bit about who you are, and then we'll get into Donor C. So let's just begin where we want to begin. Maybe your first foray into Africa, how this all kind of came about.
Yeah. Well, Amos, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. And it sounds like you've got a really active and engaged community. And so it's just an honor to be here. Yeah, I grew up in Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. I was a private school kid growing up. And so I felt like private school life was normal life. I felt like if
Mm-hmm.
everyone, I looked around, all my friends were wearing uniforms, and in high school we all had cars that we drove, and we all played sports, and we are kind of preppy. And I was like, oh, this is what humans are like. We're just all like in this kind of same jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Then I graduated. I went to a private college. I graduated from there. I spent a year in the corporate world, also kind of serving some wealthier people. And so up until that point, I was really thinking, okay, this is what the world is like. And
Mm-hmm.
then I wanted to go overseas, and I can get more into why that was, but ultimately I felt this dissatisfaction. I was like, there's got to be more to life than what I was, this corporate life and
Mm-hmm.
making money and getting promotions and all this stuff. So I quit my job. I moved overseas to Malawi, Africa. The year I moved there, it was the poorest country on the planet. And when I got there, I met people who were living on less than $1 a day, like about 40 cents a day. I had friends who just, that was their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when my eyes, you always know that, okay, yeah, of course there are people out there who live on less than $1 a day. But then that was the first time I was face to face with them, and I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to them, and I was realizing, wow, my life, my private school life was so different than their upbringing. They like, if I'm 30 now, if there's another 30-year-old out there in Malawi, a lot of them have very different upbringings than I did and very different access to opportunity. And so that really expanded my appreciation for um, the types of lives that people live on our planet. And through that, I started doing a few crowdfunding campaigns, and I had a video camera that someone gave me, and I was filming all this different stuff. And we started off really small, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and then it turned into a girls' school that you mentioned, and then turned into a whole platform where people all over the world are fundraising for small personal projects that are directly helping some of the
Mm-hmm.
poorest people on the planet. And so yeah, that's where I came from, private school kid, and that's where I am now. I'm back in Northern Virginia, running this organization that's serving the world's poorest.
Okay. So let's get into Donor C a little bit. So you say it started from your desire to raise money for the girls' high school, right? That's how it kind of started.
Yeah, there was so when I was in Malawi, this is something that I really am a strong believer in. I'm a kid from right outside Washington D.C. What do I know about what people in Malawi need? Basically
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I know almost
Yeah.
nothing. But a lot of times people will go overseas and they'll say, "Oh, they just need shoes or something like that. They
Mm-hmm.
just they just decide what the people over there need." Well, no,
Yeah.
I spent 3 years living in Malawi. One of the things that I learned was you should really talk to people about what they think they need. They know their location, they know their country, they know the needs of their people. And so as I talked to the Malawians there, they said that the biggest need in their country was girls' education. And so there was a woman over there who had this almost like a business plan for a school. It was a vision document. She presented it to me. It was several pages long, and she said, "I've been dreaming of building this school for a long time. I just don't have the funds, but I have the curriculum. I've got the architecture plans. I've got everything. I just need the funds." And so I said, "Well, okay, I'll try and raise the funds." And that created this groundswell of support. Like people got so excited to build this girls' school, and so thousands of people came together, donated the money it was required to build the initial buildings. It was $100,000, and we built it week by week. And then from there, the school was built, fully sustainable. There's 120 girls who went there the first year. There's over 300 girls who attend the school now. They've expanded and grown and
Hmm.
stuff. And then from that, from all of the videos I was making about the school, that's what
Yeah.
eventually turned into the DonorSee platform, where we're making videos and showing people how their
Okay.
donations are being spent.
So interesting about your platform is the actually, it seems like it's this ideal of trust, right?
Yeah,
Because like, I live here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I every time I see people on the street asking for money, the
yeah,
thought always crossed my mind is that I know they need something, but is that really what they need? Right?
yeah,
Do they really need a night in a hotel room, or they have a kid with them? And I say, is that kid's a prop, or what they actually really need? Right?
yeah.
And I was like, man, if there was some way somebody could verify everybody's need, I think
Hmm.
it'll be a lot easier, right?
Yeah, yeah, it would be. That's for sure. And you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Having that relational component and being
Hmm.
able to trust that your money is going to the right place,
Yeah.
that is absolutely crucial. And people do get taken advantage of, and fraud does happen.
Yeah.
Just in general, and you want to try and mitigate against that as much as
Hmm.
possible. And so, yeah, that's why we highly vet all of the partners on our platform. We work with people who have spent decades in their local communities. So
Hmm.
we try and find someone, like if you spent 10 years living in Sudan and you know the people of Sudan and you have
Hmm.
relationships with the people of Sudan, you can you can balance out all of the difficulties of like, "Oh, well, can I trust this person? No, but I can trust this person, and there's an opportunity to help that person. And so if I just had the money, I can transfer it to that person in a way that's helpful and healthy and
Yeah.
doesn't create dependency and all that stuff." And so, yeah, that's a big thing that we really care about is having the money go through trusted hands that are so that we can have like an effective outcome and
Yeah.
not a band-aid solution, basically.
Yeah. And so basically what I think from the platform is that people who don't necessarily have the need, but the people who are on the ground who knows the people have need, they're the ones who doing the posting, right?
Yeah, we partner with people who they're very altruistic people. They live abroad and they're looking to serve the people around them. Sometimes they're from the country that they're in, and sometimes they've
Hmm.
traveled to that country and they live there long term. And so, yeah, people are coming to them with needs, and they're vetting the needs themselves.
Yeah.
And then we've vetted them to see if we trust them,
Okay.
and we have a lot of different touch points to manage the accountability of that. Um, but one of the things I always emphasize is whenever you give any amount of money to any organization ever, it always
Hmm.
requires some trust. Like you do have, like that trust is a necessary component of all charitable
Hmm.
interactions. There's no
Hmm.
way to get around it. And so, what we try and do is we just try to be the most trustworthy organization and partner with the most trustworthy people.
Okay. Okay. Now, with this particular organization, Donor C, I like what it does. From the moment I heard it, I was really excited about what you were doing. Do you think that was this motivated by something you saw as a need, or did you feel like God was like speaking to you, "Hey, Gret, I need you to do this"? Like, what have you teased out of that?
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a interesting way that you phrase it. Because if I had to explain how I felt God communicated, because I do feel like it was a calling. I felt like it was
Hmm.
something that I should be doing, it
Hmm.
was something that I chose to do at the expense of, continuing my corporate career or making money or lots of other stuff. So, but I felt like it was kind of like the visual that I have in my head is like you're driving down a dark road
Hmm.
and all you really know is what the next turn is. And you
Yeah.
have these headlights in front of you, but you don't even have overhead lights. So I knew I was supposed to go to Malawi, and then I
Hmm.
knew I was supposed to start meeting the people there, and then I knew I was supposed to start filming videos, and then that turned into crowdfunding for small projects, which then turned into crowdfunding for a big school, which then turned
Hmm.
into establishing this platform. And I didn't know that was what was down the road. I just knew, oh, this next step is
That's supposed to
where I
be.
feel led to be. So yeah, that was kind of how it was how it was
So
revealed to me.
it's kind of like it unfolded, right? So
Yeah,
like the story I tell people sometimes is like when the Israelites were about to go into the promised land, God said, I'm gonna give it to you little by little. I'm not gonna give it to you
yeah,
all in the same year because you're not gonna be able to sustain it anyway. So basically a lot of things I teach you about is that usually God moves in stages, moves in
hmm
steps. Like even when he called Abraham, he said, I'm gonna go to a place I will show you. He didn't really tell him where he was going. So it's like that faith walk, that step by
yeah.
step
That's
by step,
exactly how
right?
it felt. And there, I even remember the year before I that DonorSee was started, and even the actually in the year before I started crowdfunding for the school, I had been in
Mm-hmm.
Malawi for about 2 years at that point, and I remember working being like at the gym. There was like a tiny little room of a gym that I was working out in with a friend of mine, and he was like, "So what are you like doing next year?" And I told him, "I don't know what I'm doing next year, but I just have this sense I'm gonna find my life's purpose next year." And I remember
Okay.
telling him
Okay.
that, and I just had this sense it was coming. I was like, "There's
Yeah.
this culmination that's been building," and I just so that was like in October, November of I guess 2015, and then 2016 was when the girls' school got launched and DonorSee was launched, and so that is kind of interesting how that unfolded as you said.
Yeah. Step by step. I love it.
Yeah,
So I had questions from a lot of our church entrepreneurs community members, and one of the questions was curious about those first few dollars that you got into Donor C. I mean, we're dealing with cross borders, cross
yeah,
nations. How did you? What platform did you use? I'm pretty sure to actually do that.
yeah. So, and this is just as an entrepreneurial. I have a lot of friends who are starting things and they're in the entrepreneurship space,
Mm-hmm.
and I always tell them, um, like they have these ideas and these business plans and stuff, and I always tell them, well, you got to get that first dollar. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like that's your north star. Get that
Mm-hmm.
first dollar and figure out like how that's going to work. So for me, it was a WordPress website with the very first thing I fundraised for was for a bike. There was a $60 bike for actually I went over as a teacher my first year there, and so the woman who was living on 40 cents a day who cleaned my classroom. I spoke with her and she said that she lost her bike, or she was actually run off the road by a
Yeah.
car. And so she needed a new bike and it would help her not have to walk an hour to school each way. So I wrote her story. I took a picture of her. I wrote her, or actually I filmed the video of her. I wrote her story down on my WordPress blog, which I believe was called mathinmalawi.com. I was a
Mm-hmm.
math
Mm-hmm.
teacher, and I put a PayPal link, and I sent it out by email to some friends, and like literally exactly the $60 came in, even though there was no progress bar or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so it was just such a small amount, but it was like people were fulfilling a need. And I think what happened was it was PayPal, right? So the money went into like some US bank account I had, and then I had my Malawian money, and I was like, well, I'll just figure out, I'm not even going to transfer it. It's just $60. So I'm just going to take my $60 of Malawian money and use
Mm-hmm.
it to buy a bike and then provide it for her. And so that was, yeah, that small little thing was the first thing. And then
Yeah.
I took a picture. I actually, we wrote out all of the donors' names on a piece of paper, and we stood there, like me and Rose, the lady
Yeah.
who got the bike. We stood there and we took a picture, and the donors liked that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is cool. It's a cool way to build a relationship with people. And then it grew from there.
That's cool. So it's really like you just started with the tools you had versus
Yeah.
trying to figure out all the little international laws by transferring money. Say, hey, you
You
know what?
have to,
I got
yeah.
a WordPress site. I got a PayPal account.
Yep.
I don't know how to transfer the money, but I do got some allowing money here, and
Yeah.
I'll figure.
Yes, what you have to do. It's like the duct tape solution. Like
Yeah.
that's the only, like if you haven't made that first dollar yet, just figure out the simplest
Mm-hmm.
possible way to get that
Yeah.
that first dollar, and
Yeah.
then you can make it more complex after that, and you can scale it after that. But yeah,
Yeah.
getting that first dollar was absolutely key. So
That's good stuff. It's like I don't know how true this is, but I think I remember hearing the story of Airbnb, and it sounds like they were saying those first few rentals, humans were involved. Like somebody would say, "I need a place," and somebody will try to find a place, and
yeah,
then they'll say,
exactly. Yeah,
right,
like I like to be downtown somewhere. Okay, let's find someone downtown.
downtown.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
yeah.
think you remember, like in the old days, when I was in grad school at Georgia Tech, and my advisors told me about this new company coming up called Google. He said, "Have you heard of this guys
Yeah.
called Google?" I said, "No. What is these guys?" And right, and so he said they got started. They downloaded the whole internet to start Google, and they
Oh
learned how
my.
to do search. Right,
Yeah.
you can imagine that, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's what was needed
yeah,
at the time,
yeah,
I guess. That is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
so
if you really drill down to it, everyone who starts anything
hmm
always starts with that, like, that little kernel, that one thing that
Hmm.
that that is where the first piece of traction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people like to live in the theory too much or the planning too
Yeah.
much. It's like, well, you gotta get
Hmm.
at least that one little bit of traction to get going.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So, um, now everything, anytime you raise money to do stuff, it costs money to do actually the raising of the money itself.
Yeah,
Do you guys got a feel for what percentage of? I mean, obviously, like so, like I just say, the campaign I funded was like $60, right,
yeah,
to close out the thing, right? So
hmm
I gave $60 to the thing, and I'm pretty sure there's some credit card processing fees.
hmm
There's some money needed to actually run Donor C.
yep.
So how do you guys, is it really just $60? Did you guys like, how does that, just from just understanding, like, from your charity standpoint?
Yeah, so there's some charities where for every dollar you give, 100% of it goes to the field.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the guy who started that, Scott Harrison, he's someone that I've met and spent time with before.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like an overreaction, because before his charity started, there were charities that were like 90% was going to overhead. So he's like, you're not going to worry about overhead. Overhead's not going to be a thing. So he said 100% will not go to overhead, and then he would fundraise the overhead separately. And so that was a great revision on charity about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're at a place where people are almost like afraid to talk about overhead. It's like overhead is the people think of overhead as this bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the more overhead you have, the worse of a charity you are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's an outdated conversation. So I think that overhead is good. I always tell people, if you really want your money, if you want the highest percentage of your money to go to people in need, then just PayPal money to people or just send Western Union to people. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason that you pay for overhead is because there are a lot of relationships that need to be built to make sure the rest of the money is used effectively. So would you rather have $10 be used poorly, like you're flushing it down the drain, or would you rather have $3 be used to help the $7 be used really effectively? So our percentage that we operate on, our operating expenses, are 13.75% per transaction. So whatever that works out to with your $60, that
Yeah.
that percentage goes to helping us have a staff and helping us run the website. Like we have you've seen our website. There's HD videos, like
Yeah.
thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of HD videos all over our website. The hosting costs are not cheap, but so providing that communication and the transfer fees and all that stuff, that 13.75% goes to that. And yeah, we believe that that's a good thing. We say
Yeah.
we're going to take this small amount of money, and that's going to make the rest of your money be used really, really well. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
proud to take our overhead. And so
Yeah.
not some charities don't operate that way. They try and hide their overhead, or they try and,
Mm-hmm.
they're almost like bashful about it. We're proud of our overhead. Our
Yeah.
overhead lets us do the amazing things that we do
Yeah.
on our platform.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a good thing. So yeah, thanks for asking that.
Yeah. Because I mean, the way I look at it too is that I can't personally go do some of the things I want to do, but I can hire Grit to go do it for me. You know
Exactly.
what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah. You can't go give that $60 out in,
Yeah.
India or wherever it was with the
Yeah.
guy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And right now, just from the front side of it, I don't know how your back end look, but the front was really smooth now.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
the back end looks pretty good, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, the front looks good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
always improving it. Like almost every day, we push more code to the website to make it
Hmm.
friendlier and make it easier to use and get better, higher quality video and all that stuff. So we really try
Yeah.
hard we're very proud of that.
So in terms of like, from my understanding, you raise money from multiple amounts of people to give to a single cause versus trying to go to big donors to try to fill a thing. How did you come to that decision point versus saying, you know what? I don't want to try to raise money from one large organization. Let me raise from a whole bunch of little people. Was that just like some Bitcoin thing you saw one day, or just like what
It's a
came?
good question. Yeah, I think what happened was it evolved from that story of the bike, and I was really trying to understand what was it like. The $60 really came in, and then the next project that I did was there was an elderly lady. She was about 70 years old, and her name was Rosina, and she needed a house, and it only
Mm-hmm.
cost about like $800 to build her the house that she needed. And so learning about telling her story. This is Rosina. This is where she comes from. She's in a tough spot. She really needs a new house, and it's only $700 to pay to get this new house. Um, s- that that's like where it started. And I would talk to the donors, and I would say, like, what was it that made you donate? Why did you choose to donate? You have a million places to donate. Why are you donating to this house with this lady as opposed to someone else? And they say, well, all the charities, they tell me that they're helping people, but they don't show me the people that they're helping. They'll say there's this one girl, and this one girl represents the 10,000 people that we're helping. And what I liked about donating through your website, my WordPress website, was I could actually see the person I'm helping and actually know that my money, I could see, watch, I could not only see how my money is being used, but I can see the joy that my money creates. And that's a really
Yeah.
thrilling experience for people.
Mm-hmm.
And so just talk, and this is again another entrepreneurial principle, is you want to talk to people about what is it, like if you, when you're trying to get that first dollar, you're trying to get that first purchase, and someone does make the purchase, you talk to them and you say like, why'd you choose me? Like, what was it about
Mm-hmm.
me, that what was it about my product that that made you do it? And you listen to them and you hear them. And so the feedback I was getting from everyone was, I like the relationships I'm building, o- overseas, that I'm able to do through this platform. And so focusing on that single story, and there's the kind of like the higher level answer is, there's the the quote that a million people is a statistic and a single person is a tragedy. So if you can
Mm-hmm.
show, there's a really deep power in telling one person's story. You can really
Yeah.
empathize with one person. It's hard to empathize with a million people. It's just too much for us. And so giving people the ability to meet individuals and give to them was
Yeah.
this feedback that I just kept hearing from people. And that's why we've been so passionate about that.
Yeah, that's good. I think I remember Seth Godin saying that about marketing one time. He said that, if you see somebody who is in the rain, is about to step into a puddle, you might take off your expensive coat and cover so they don't get their feet
Exactly.
wet, but you wouldn't do it at a distance. But you're right there. You know the need was there. You'll take off whatever to make sure that person is okay at that moment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you see the need, your compassion kicks in, your empathy kicks
Mm-hmm.
in. You're like, okay, I want to help that person. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So your name is really cool. Like I know is that from me just using the site, I'm assuming what it means is that as a donor, I get to see my efforts.
Yes,
So
exactly.
where did that great revelation come from? Like this is gonna be the coolest name ever for a company, and the
You
dot
know,
com exists.
yeah, that's a good question, because so it was a while ago when I came up with the name, and one of the things that I wanted it to be a name that people understand the spelling of it. People know about donor, they know about seed, and all that stuff. But I think the other, like, to be perfectly frank with you, I think I just went to, like GoDaddy.com or some URL website, and I just started plugging in like hundreds of different options, like whatever would come to me, and I would keep track of stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
came up with probably 50 like potential names, and I ran them by everyone. And the one that really seemed to stick with people was Donor Seed. Now, again, I don't want people to like worry too much about their name. I almost think like people get too, it's like that's part of the planning and the theory and the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that people get too caught up in. And at the end of the day, I think it's good to just get that traction. But
Yeah.
yeah, the name is it does have these long-term benefits, where it's like it really, if it can articulate what makes you as an organization unique, that's when you know it's a good name. And the other thing was, there were very few names I found where I could just have 9 letters. So having
Mm.
donorc.com, just a 9-letter URL, very rare these days. It wasn't no one owned it, so I just bought it for like 9.99. And I think that was kind of the kicker, is I didn't have to pay this expensive thing. I didn't have to do trademark or anything like that. It was
Mm-hmm.
just like this great name that was just
Yeah.
sitting there waiting for me, and it
Yeah.
perfectly described what we're doing. So
Yeah. It's a cool name. It's definitely cool.
yeah,
How do
thank
you
you.
how do you keep your motivation? Like are there like months where maybe the donations are not as high as you want them to be, or the revenue for your company is not where it needs to be? In those times, what gets you over that hump?
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, I wonder if it can even be taught, or I wonder if it can even be developed. Like, it's like you either have it or you don't. It's
Mm-hmm.
this strange thing, and there are a lot of other people who would want to start the same exact idea, but they don't feel as passionately about it as I do.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I just have this insane passion to make
Mm-hmm.
this thing work. And when I have like, it hasn't happened in a while, thankfully. We've been growing very steadily for the last 2 years. But like, let's say I had like a 3 month dip. It's like that, personally, that hurts. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
painful thing to experience, to feel like you've created this thing and you have this big dip, and how come people don't care at this moment? Thankfully we haven't been in that position in a while. But when that sort of thing happens, it is tough. You feel it, especially as the
Mm-hmm.
founder, as the
Yeah.
person who's like trying to make this thing happen. And it's just very difficult. And I think the people who are able to maintain that motivation, or the people who have they think in terms of like a really long-term vision. So
Hmm.
I have friends who've started stuff and given up on it, and I think like ultimately they didn't have a very clear long-term vision in the future. They had like an idea of what the next like 6 months would look like, but not really what the next 20 years would look like. Whereas I have this, like, I know where DonorC is right now, and I am like so excited for where DonorC is going to be in 20 years. I'm just like working tirelessly to get there.
Hmm.
And I think
Hmm.
having that long-term vision keeps me just
Keeps you
motivated
going.
and
Yeah.
excited. And but yeah, it's tough to train, but that's the thing. It's that.
So it's really just the passion and the motivation, and this is where I think what some of the spiritual part comes in. This hearing you speak about this, it feels like this is what you were built to do,
Yeah,
right?
I
You
know
know
it
what
does.
I'm
It does. That's what's
saying?
weird about it. It's like what else would I even be doing if it weren't
Yeah.
for this? It's like creating this platform where people,
Hmm.
because I'm the private school kid who saw global poverty, and then I'm like, well, I
Hmm.
want my friends to understand the
Yeah.
what people are going through and be able to help them and stuff. And so I'm building this platform
Yeah.
and starting a team and stuff so that we can do this on a bigger scale. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so passionate about it. I don't know I don't know what else to say. I love.
That's what it is. It's passion gets you
Yeah,
through the
it's
humps.
that passion, just like kind of it gets you through those moments.
So I remember on another podcast, you were saying that I believe Donor C is actually not a nonprofit, but actually INC. So how did that decision come about?
Yeah, so I actually started a 501c3 before DonorC, and the name of that was Housing for Orphans and Widows in Malawi. That was the housing thing that you mentioned at the beginning, and that was fine. But I think I realized there were some limitations with the 501c3 model, which basically there's a lot more paperwork involved. There's a lot more regulations, and I think that's a good thing in a lot of cases. But for what we're specifically doing with DonorC, where we're trying to get funds directly to people as quickly as possible, it was creating too much friction.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, so we're set up as a LLC, but
Hmm.
when the people that you see on our platform, most of them are 501c3s themselves. So the donors who donate to those people are still getting a 501c3, or are still getting their
Tax
tax
deduction
receipt
or whatever.
when
Yeah.
they. So it was almost like this: why add unnecessary regulation
Hmm.
to what we're doing? So that was one thing. The other thing is we have a really nice website. It's taken a long time, and we've probably put about $1 million worth of just like energy and resources into this website. And so I think because of that, that's very hard to just like raise $1 million out of the blue and you build a website. People don't necessarily want to donate to the website. So getting the capital necessary to start the website, you can only really do that if you're either you have like a bunch of billionaire friends, or if you start it as a
Yeah.
LLC. So it was a practical thing, but also yeah, there was just not much of an incentive to have that, to add that extra
Hmm.
regulation for no reason.
I mean, that's good. I mean, because like our ministry, Church Entrepreneurs, we're LLC too.
Yeah.
So we're not a nonprofit. And one of the biggest issues as I was praying about this, thinking about what about donors?
Mm,
Would they still donate if they didn't get a tax deduction?
yeah.
And and once and what God showed me was that, like He said, nobody in the Bible were LLC, was nonprofit organizations,
Yeah,
right?
it's true. That's a very good point.
I said when they donated to Jesus, they just donated. There was no no tax
Yeah.
return receipts. And
Yeah.
since I
And
started, yeah, we didn't have any problems with it.
yeah. And there's the, the reality is, and a lot of people don't even know this, and this gets kind of technical, but everyone has like a $12,000 standard deduction. If you're
Hmm.
married, then you literally have to donate more than $24,000 before you get your first before it makes sense to start writing off your taxes
Yeah.
and stuff. So all that stuff kind of makes it like, well, the majority of people are fine not doing that. But yeah, we do
Yeah.
have tax deduction on our website for those who it's important
The
to them.
bigger
And
ones. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I noticed that last year in the US when they made that tax change, I noticed that I was like, man, you got to give a lot to hit that
Yes.
threshold
That
now.
it's oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
shift. So
Yeah. And what that actually did for me though, I noticed I started giving to more things that were not connected to nonprofits. Cause like,
yeah.
I don't get a deduction anyway. So I'm about to say, here's something, you need something. Right?
Exactly. It's then it becomes the same thing, and you just
Yeah.
invest your money in the best
Yeah.
place possible.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah.
So doing the so actually let's go back to that question. So your company is it's a for-profit company. Did you raise money for the company separately to actually build out some of the things you have now?
Yeah, I raised a round of kind of a family and friends round at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
about $150,000 at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then another about the same later on. And almost all of that has gone into like producing the website, paying for our staff and all that stuff. And that was
Hmm.
like the startup capital that we needed. And now now we're able to break even on our
Okay.
operations.
Okay.
So yeah, we did raise funds at the very beginning for this website. But so like for your community who's like, well, I don't have friends that can give me $150,000. It's like, yeah, but I didn't get that money just because of my connections. I got that money because I already built a girls' school. I already fundraised for 150 houses, and
Hmm.
I already did the bike and all these videos. Like there was several
There's a
years
track
of
record.
work
Yeah.
that gave me the track record that people I knew said, okay, I'm gonna help this guy out and make his dream a reality. So it's that wasn't like step number one. Step number one happened like much earlier than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Now, tell me about your salary now. So let me, because I think you do something creative, unless you changed it. Um, so
I'm
so so just fill in the question here. Listen to this. One lady, her name is Sasha. She's from the UK. She asked me to ask you this question. She said, "I recently had heard someone told me that funders don't care about my bills, how my bills are paid. It's all about the beneficiaries." So my question is, what are his thoughts on that comment, and how does he incorporate being able to support his family from what he's doing, as well, of course, keeping the mission beneficiary focus, especially if he's dedicated his time full time to grow and develop the vision. So,
yeah,
so that's a question for
that's a
you to
great
kind of explain.
question, and I'm going to be as transparent as possible about that because I know I've been where that person is, and I want to tell them like I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think I can answer for you. So, for a long time, I did not take a single penny from DonorSee. I didn't take a salary or anything like that. And I actually fundraised through Patreon. I had my own
Hmm.
Patreon and people supported me through there. And that was like enough to like barely make it by, but it got me going. And then for a while, and then I also was doing like videography on the side. I was like filming weddings and stuff like that. That was like something I had to do for a while just to kind of keep afloat.
Hmm.
And then I met my wife and we got married, and actually her salary was supporting us for a while. So
Yeah.
there was a long time, a long time where it was like I wasn't taking any kind of compensation for myself out of the organization. It was all going to
Hmm.
either the people or the just growing the infrastructure and all that stuff. Um, so so that was how it was for a long time. And then we found out that my wife and I we found out that we were pregnant, and
Hmm.
so this was about, I guess this must have been uh, 14 months ago now because my daughter is 5 months. So we found out we were pregnant, and that's when we started having to ask questions about, well, Gret's doing his thing and Heather's got her job and we've got this baby coming. So what do we do? And I actually have a board meeting every month, and I
Hmm.
put together a presentation. I present it to my board, and every month I was telling them like I'm really anxious because I don't have enough money to like take care of my family, and what do we do if once
Hmm.
Heather has the baby, like how do we support ourselves?
Yeah.
And every month, this was like every month they were hearing me complain about this problem, and they were at one point. So there were, I think, five board members in attendance at this meeting. At one point, all five of them almost had like an intervention with me, and they said, "Why are you not paying yourself?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I can't
Yeah.
pay myself. I've told people I don't take a salary. Like it's just not. I can't do that."
Yeah.
Um, and they said, "You are so distracted because you are not taking care of yourself financially that you're
Hmm.
unable to focus on like actually growing your organization. Like you're focusing on trying to come up with creative ways to like do videography and stuff. Like that's not helping your organization. That's distracting you from it." And so they really pressured me to, and it was uncomfortable because I spent 3 years living in the poorest country on the planet. When I look at just like even a very meager salary, it makes me
Hmm.
uncomfortable because of just
Yeah.
what I know that money means to other people. But they really pressured me. They almost like held me down. They said, "You need to take a salary." And so
Hmm.
I thought about it for probably about a week, and then like it was almost like this weight was lifted off of me, and I was like, "Yeah, what if I did just take a salary? Then I
Yeah.
could focus full time on what I'm doing, um, and I'll just be transparent with people. I'll tell people, hey, I'm taking a salary now, and if that's a problem with people, then at least I was transparent about it. So I was transparent about it. People's giving went up. So here's like a funny thing: when people heard that I didn't take a salary, it was almost like a negative signal. They're like, oh, so
Yeah.
he's not legit. Like I was trying to send a
Hmm.
signal like I'm altruistic,
Yeah.
like I don't even take a salary. But what people were hearing was,
Hmm.
oh, okay, so that's like not a serious organization. Like the CEO doesn't
Hmm.
even make anything, so
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not serious people. Then when I took a salary, people said, oh, so this is like a trustworthy organization. They're in operation. They have full time staff, all this other stuff. So it ended up being like a benefit and a good. And now actually,
Hmm.
my wife. Um, we had our daughter 5 months ago. Actually, did a home birth because COVID and all that other stuff,
Yeah.
and it was very stressful to think about what exactly she should do. But she decided to work from home, and so now
Hmm.
my wife kind of like supports me in my role full time, and I'm financially having as little. Not having to worry about financials gives me the freedom to work on this organization and grow it as much as
Yeah.
possible. And so again, I didn't start at that place. I know a lot of people listening to this, they're maybe at the beginning of their journey and they're not at that place yet where they can pay themselves a salary, and but you will get there, and you just got to keep working at it. But yeah, it when you are able to do it, when you're able to pay yourself,
Hmm.
that creates the freedom to really focus on the things that matter and prioritize well. You
Yeah.
almost get into like a starvation mindset when you're not taking care of yourself, and it
Hmm.
makes it harder for you to make like good long-term decisions. And so
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of paying yourself.
Yeah. And that's a really a big deal that a lot of Christians got to kind of transfer in their mind.
Yeah,
In the Bible, Jesus talks about the workman is worthy of his hire, right?
yeah.
Don't muzzle the ox, he trade out the corn, right? So a lot
Hmm.
of times we want to do stuff and we don't want to pay ourselves to do the thing,
Yeah,
right? I remember when I first started Church Entrepreneurs, me and Guy had this big discussion because I didn't want to take any partners. Right. I was going to just
yeah.
go start some other businesses, and other businesses going to pay for this church entrepreneur stuff. I'm not going to ask them no money. I'm not going to be like that guy on TV always asking for money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I grew up in the '90s, so I'm probably
Yeah,
like
yeah.
17 years older than you. So you say you're 30, right?
Yep, they're 30 years old, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to be that guy. And the guy was like, you're being prideful.
Yeah.
It's like you're being
Fair enough, yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes you gotta be told that,
yeah,
so.
he's being prideful, right? But it does allow you to not have to worry about when your family is taken care of. You can fight the war better
Yes,
because you're not worried
absolutely.
about what's going on back home, right?
And I think of it as an investment. It's like you have
Yeah.
to invest resources to produce resources. Like I think the parable of the talents is very meaningful to me. I don't want
Hmm.
to be the guy who buries my talent in the sand and comes back empty-handed later on. I want to invest like the full 10 talents and come back with 10 more talents and show, look at what I did. So my salary, I consider it an investment in the work that I'm doing. And I hope that it actually, like by paying myself, I'm actually producing more benefit for society and for the people that we're helping.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely is investment, right? If you were
Yeah.
not full time doing this, your creativity wouldn't be there. And for some people, like if they see Gret needs a donation, and then Donor C needs a donation, like, well, who do we give to? Right? Are
Yeah,
we gonna give to
exactly.
Gret? Or are we gonna give to the thing, right?
Yeah, it becomes kind of you dilute the possibilities.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's
yeah,
like,
it gives more focus to what we're doing for
yep,
sure.
yep. That's good. So we've got like another 10 minutes here, and we're gonna wrap up our interview with Gret. And so I want to just look over real quick some of these other questions that people ask. Um, this may make more sense from a nonprofit space, but a lady asked, "What does he do to ensure that the poor don't become a product, but remain a just
Yeah,
cause to serve?"
yeah, that's a huge threat. And
Hmm.
there's a tension. There's a really big tension there because so like one of the phrases that people use a lot is this idea of poverty porn, where you turn images of people in poverty, you turn that into like almost like a marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of organizations that do this with kind of the intention of, well, it helps our bottom line, it gets more donations in the door. And then there's people who say any kind of representation of poverty
Hmm.
whatsoever is terrible. Like shouldn't do it, you shouldn't show it whatsoever. And so there's like this spectrum of people who are like, don't show any poverty or show it and get as much money as possible. And
Hmm.
so what we do is we try to keep the people in poverty at the center of the discussion. So we want them to dictate how their stories are represented.
Hmm.
So as much as possible, and so in some cases, what that means is, like let's say there's someone who has suffered from some kind of sexual abuse. In that case, what we do is we'll blur out their image, but still give them the opportunity to tell their story, and that's how they want to convey their situation to people. Other people have what to us would be undignifying situations, but they want people to see their situation. They want people to see it because they
Hmm.
know that's the reality for them, and they want people to understand the reality so that they are moved to donate, and they wouldn't be moved to donate without seeing the reality.
Yeah.
Other people are much more private about it, and they ask to just kind of um, they ask to just tell their story kind of plainly in with language, but not show too much of what's going on. And so we try and let them be the ones who decide. So we want them to
Hmm.
tell their story, and we do our best to have them be the ones who are dictating how that story is told. And so we believe that that's the way to provide people with the most dignity. Is like, you tell your story how you want it to be told, and we're gonna shoot the video or explain write the description in a way that keeps you at the center of it. But it's very tough,
Hmm.
and it's a great question to ask. So um, it's not something that is like it's not something that's just you fix it once and it's solved. It's like you have to constantly be
Keep working
evaluating
at
these
it.
things.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah. That's good. So during the pandemic, how successful have you guys been? Did you guys notice any dips, or did you see like more people more compassionate in terms of doing the
Yeah.
pandemic?
So I mean, everyone remembers there was like a big stock market crash at like the beginning of March of 2020, like right as people realized how serious COVID was. So right at that moment, like donations halted, there was not very much happening, and there was this kind of like the uncertainty kind of created this, um, like a big dip in donations at the beginning. But then people's compassion kicked in, and I also think it helped that people weren't spending money on restaurants anymore. They weren't
Hmm.
spending money on gas to go to their jobs because they were working remotely and stuff. So there was a little bit more freed up, um, just freed up income for them. And so I think that helped us out quite a bit. But then I also think people's compassion was moved for for the first time. They felt this level of danger, or
Hmm.
like being uncomfortable that they're not used to, and it allowed
Hmm.
them to relate to people who are not in their situation for the first time, and it allowed them to kind of say, well, maybe I really should help out people in a tougher situation than me. And so yeah, so our donation volume went up quite a bit during
Okay.
the pandemic. I think a lot of just tech organizations saw that kind of increase in
Hmm.
activity.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I was assuming it would, but I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So let's talk about your family a little bit. So you're married, you got a
Hmm.
little one. Some entrepreneurs, there's a tension between what they do and their family life.
Yeah.
Spouse may not be on board with the vision. How did you navigate that, or you haven't experienced that yet in your marriage?
No, so that's a great question. So Donor was started before I started dating my wife. So it was, something that was a part of an ongoing discussion, like as we were dating and as we got engaged and as we got married.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm very fortunate in that I have a wife who's insanely supportive of what I'm doing. And I'm
Hmm.
trying to think back if I think, um, she's always been like the right amount of supportive. Like when Donor wasn't as big as it is now,
Hmm.
she was still supportive, but she was also like, "You should probably do some videography gigs because
We
we
need
need
some
the
money,
money."
right?
Yeah. So, but as it's grown and as the potential has been there, she
Hmm.
really believes in it. And like there have been times when like I'll have to take a pay cut for a month or something like that, and she's like very very supportive of all that stuff. She just really believes in the yeah I'm very I don't know what to say. I have an awesome wife. She's
Hmm.
very supportive of me, and she believes in what we're doing, and she's I'm just lucky. I don't know what else to say.
But
She's a great
actually,
woman.
that's an interesting thought, because you were dating while you were building, and
Yeah,
so like for some community members, they're single right now,
yeah.
and they're building their projects right now. So would you advise them that if you are dating somebody to make sure that that person is right now cool with where you are, or any advice on that?
Yeah, I think the advice would be that you just want to be upfront and transparent about your situation,
Hmm.
and about like what your priorities are in life. And I tried to do that with Heather. I tried to tell her, like, this is really important to me. I'm my whole life is going to be serving the global poor. I spent 3 years in
Yeah.
Malawi. This is a big part of my story. So
Hmm.
it's okay. Like, and I even told her, like, it's okay if it's not your thing, but it's going to be a big part of what I do, and it's going to be hard for me to spend money on stuff because I have this like weird relationship with money because I spent 3 years living in the poorest country on the planet and stuff, and so I was
Hmm.
really upfront. In fact, but I'll tell you what. So I'll give you this one story as like as an example of what our relationship is like. Um, for back, this was like a few years ago, I guess like 3 years ago, when we were still dating. DonorSee was still pretty small, and I had these like running shoes I've been wearing for like several years, like
Yeah.
a really long time. They're just these old running shoes, and running shoes you're not supposed to wear for that long. They become bad for your back. So I was developing back pain because I was wearing these running shoes. I didn't want to buy more running shoes because they're like $120, and that's a lot of money. I know people who, that's
Mm-hmm.
like 3 months of income for them, and so
Yeah.
it just really made me uncomfortable. And Heather just saw me becoming more and more like in back
Mm-hmm.
pain.
Yeah.
And one day she like, I forget what she did. She almost like tricked me. I got in the car with her, and then she drove to the shoe store. And I'm almost like embarrassed to say this. I was almost like kicking and screaming, like not wanting to go buy new shoes because I was like, I just it was conceptually hard for me. And she was like insistent that I get new shoes because it
Shoes.
was like
Yeah.
giving me back pain. And so finally, I was like, it woke me up. It made me realize like I wasn't taking
Mm-hmm.
care of myself as well as I should have, and I realized, okay, this woman really cares about me, and she's putting her like she doesn't put her foot down often, but when she does, it's only because she like really really cares about my
Mm-hmm.
well-being. And so yeah, the person that you marry has a big impact on your life, and you do want to. There's one other thing I'll say. I guess it's funny that you're asking me about this because I haven't talked much about my marriage, but I because I just don't get asked about that much. But there's a lot I think about it. So when I got married, I knew that my marriage actually takes priority over DonorSee. So I knew that there would be situations where I would give up something that would be good for DonorSee in order to put my marriage first. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that that would
Mm-hmm.
happen, and that was tough for me to reconcile because we're saving lives on DonorSee. So it's like
Yeah.
there's like these really big costs that are happening, and
Mm-hmm.
so but I had to just make the decision. I'm going to put my marriage first, and then I believe that by putting your marriage, by investing in your marriage and yourself, you're actually able to make a bigger impact outwardly. But that
Yeah.
investment in yourself and your marriage and your family is actually really really important.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's something that that was like a conscious decision I made before I got married.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. That's good advice. So man, I appreciate you sharing your story with our community. I'm really surprised that Donuts is not bigger than what it is already. Because
Yeah.
like it's really really nice, really smooth. Um,
Give us
so
about 1 or 2 years.
yeah,
We're growing quite rapidly right now,
yeah.
and so I think it will be. It's just one of those things where like people are discovering it,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't have all the systems in place that we do now. Like 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, we didn't have like as good vetting on our site, and our project quality wasn't as good. Now we've got like really good systems in place, and so
Mm-hmm.
give us like 1 or 2 years, and I think it's gonna be this explosion of awareness because we're
Yeah.
seeing the growth. The growth that we're having right now is rapid.
Wow. Okay.
So I give it 1 or 2 years. I think you'll start hearing it a lot more.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Because like, and you guys are focusing just on what third world countries in terms of the
Yeah,
stores you guys use.
the way that we describe it is we focus on anyone living in the poorest half of the world. So what people
Mm-hmm.
don't realize is in order to be in the poorest half of the world, you have to earn $3 a day or less. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the amount. So it's not much money. So anyone kind of so that's 3.5 billion people who are all living on $3 a day or less. So these are people who maybe they don't have electricity, they don't have access to healthcare, they don't have access to clean water, they don't have
Mm-hmm.
access to they struggle with a lot of other like issues like sexual abuse and stuff like that. So we focus on just these people who are really the most vulnerable people on earth, and we work with local partners to empower them in ways that make
Yeah.
sense for their local context.
Okay, cool. And another question that came through was that how you determine the projects, and it sounds like you guys don't determine the projects, you just determine the organizations that are on the
Yeah, we
ground.
work with the organizations, we vet them, we make sure that they're mission aligned, we have our core values and stuff, and then as long as they're mission aligned, we bring them onto our platform, and we
Mm-hmm.
give them quite a bit of leeway to post the type of projects that fit what they're doing. But and yeah, we have some guidelines, but for the most part, we want to empower. Like I said before, it makes no sense for me to be deciding the lives of how people should get aid in rural
Mm-hmm.
Sudan. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'm in Springfield, Virginia. Like I shouldn't be making these decisions that affect people's lives over there. So we really try and emphasize like the local expertise that people have and the
Okay.
local connections and relationships.
Yeah.
So they're the ones putting the needs out there, and
Yeah.
then from there, donors get to decide who they want to fund.
That's cool. So really, so in business terms, you guys would be like a matchmaker.
Yeah,
There's people with money and there's people with problems, and you're matching them up,
yeah,
right?
we're a marketplace. You could call us a curated
Yep.
marketplace. Like
Yep.
so, eBay would be, or I'll say like this: YouTube is like anyone can post and anyone can watch. Netflix is a curated marketplace. They have selected content, and then you have to pay to watch it. We're like a curated marketplace. You have to be vetted to get on the platform, and then if you want a relationship with people on the platform, you should donate. So
Yep.
that's the
Perfect.
type of business model we are. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So the final question that came, well, not the final question, but the question I will ask here. Somebody says, how can we as an entrepreneur community help Donor C out?
Man, that warms my heart that they ask. You got a great community there. I would say that the main thing is just to spread the word about us.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be the case that we like didn't even have enough projects on the platform, and we didn't have the hosting to handle it. Now we're ready to go. We're ready for as
Okay.
many people to hear about us as possible. And so if you want to share, if you want to post something on social media about us or tell people about us, that's a big deal. Also, just sign up, and I write a weekly newsletter. So if you just go to donorc.com and then you click the sign up button and you create an account, you don't even have to donate, but then you'll get like my weekly newsletters.
Yeah.
You'll stay in touch with what we're doing. So I think just staying connected with us, promoting what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
letting people know that there's a lot of people out there who are living on less than $3 a day. They have some very tough situations, but it's incredible. Like anyone
Mm-hmm.
living in America right now can go and save someone's life or dramatically improve someone's life on
Yeah.
DonorSee right
Yeah.
now. It's like an incredible thing. So the more people that know about that, the better.
Yeah. And I would encourage everybody else who's listening to and watching is that, I would say just go fund a project, just go
Yeah.
look what they got and just, and for me, when I did it, it felt easy because I felt like, okay, I'm trusting Gret, and I'm trusting that he built something that's trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then if I can trust that he's trustworthy, then if I donate this money, it's going to do what it said.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a liberating feeling. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
And then on top of that, you get your video update showing
yep.
you that your
That
donation went
show that
through,
it
and
worked, right?
yeah.
And
So
it's a powerful connection. So I would definitely recommend, spread the word and actually just go donate. It's not like
yeah.
we're talking like thousands of dollars either, right?
Yeah.
Like $10, like
Yeah.
$5,
Yeah.
and it all adds up. It's like just fractional pieces of the puzzle coming together for massive good. So that's good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. All right, Gret, thank you for being a part of here. Any final thoughts you want to add? Any
I just
final
think that
pitches?
you sound like you have a great community, and I love the combination of bringing the Christian world and the entrepreneurship world together. I think that that's just a wonderful thing, and I would encourage everyone to just stay faithful. I think that that's a fear not. That's one of the most common commands. That is the most common command that Jesus gave to his
Mhm.
disciples. And there's a lot of fear out there, and we don't need to live that way. So just have faith, keep working on the stuff you're working on. I think you guys have a great community.
All right. Thanks, Gret, for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, Amos.
All right.